This is the Success Through Community podcast. Welcome back. We are back to the Success Through Community podcast. We are here for, what season is this now?
Season
even
3.
remember.
Can you believe it? We actually
Are we on season 3?
We're on season 3.
No, we're on
No,
season
4.
4.
We're on. Oh my
We're on
goodness!
season
Where's
4.
the 10th one?
That's what I'm
Season 4.
saying. I thought it was more than I was thinking. That doesn't make sense, but that's okay. And yes, we are starting season 4, and
Season 4.
we were just talking before we started recording, and we just thought, it would probably be a good moment for us to acknowledge something about ourselves that maybe you know about us and maybe you don't. We sometimes are overly ambitious about things that we do. I don't know. Would you agree with that statement?
A little bit. It's kind of like our eyes and our ambitions are bigger than even I'm not
Our stomachs.
really good at. Yeah, but we're not eating. We're reading. So our eyes are bigger than our brains. That's kind of mean. So
No, our eyes
overambitious.
are not bigger than our brains, but I know what you're saying. We got overly excited, I think, about the idea that this podcast and this new format we've been doing can help us get through our stack of want to reads. And I think we both thought, well, I'm just going to get through them really, really fast. And we are going to get through them, but we're going to actually allow ourselves the space to enjoy them and not feel like we're rushing, because we both read a lot of books to get through the first 2 seasons of this format. And it was a lot. It was good information, but it was a lot. So we have made the decision. This is why you haven't heard from us in a little bit, but we've made the decision to kind of change it up just a smidge. We're still going to be reading, and the format of what we're talking about isn't changing, but we're going to do fewer seasons, more episodes. So I'm not really sure if that's going to, you guys might get more out of us really in the long run, but it's going to be a little bit less intense for us.
Yeah. So it's definitely going to relieve a lot of that pressure and overwhelm that we were feeling when we first discussed this format about reading these books and talking about it. We were both so excited, and the idea to me was maybe we can just take one part of the book and just read and just cover that part per episode, and then but it's impossible because you just get sucked into the book. We're choosing these books with intention, and then you get right into it, and you can't just go, well, I'm only going to talk about one itty bitty little piece. As much as we try to, we are just not capable by all means.
No, and I think too, we're both kind of finisher personalities to a point.
Yeah.
I mean, not that we haven't had our share of ideas that we then just abandoned, because we certainly have. I know I have. But when it comes to books, I have a really hard time not finishing a book, even if I don't like it.
Yeah, even bad ones.
I can only, even bad ones. I can only think of one book in the last year or two that I literally had to stop reading. And it was not like a book like we talk about here. It was meant to be a for fun book. And I was listening to it, and I'm not going to call it out because it's nothing against the author. It was the narrator. And we have talked about this ad nauseum on this podcast. But this was a hired narrator. And I don't know how she got the job, because even when I had her at 2 times speed, it was so slow. I just couldn't do it. I could not do it.
No way.
And she had an accent that I'm not entirely sure what the accent was. I don't know. Anyways, all I know is I could not finish the book. It was very hard for me to, metaphorically put it down. But I was vindicated because I went to Goodreads to leave a comment about it, which I don't always do, but I had to leave a review about this because I had to warn others who were hoping this would be a fun book. It's my most reacted to, my most liked review ever. And I was not the only one making comments about that when I read through some of the reviews later. So I felt vindicated, but it was very hard for me not to finish that book. And because of that, our idea of, well, we'll just read, maybe we won't even have to take the time to read the whole thing right now. We can always come back to it later, but we'll read and we'll focus on a particular part of it. And no, that just it doesn't work for me. I
It
can't
does.
I can't do that.
Absolutely. You can't do that with a novel because, you can't just step away and then start another novel and then go back to another one. You can't make
Right.
it like that with anything. At least I can. So yeah, that was not going to
Mm-mm.
work for me. And I love that we've turned it into a full read because all of these books have at one point I have either read and loved and wanted to, read again, or it's something I've been wanting to read and it's on the list. And there's a long to read list. But I think too, with how we were trying to pull it off, and I think, you know what, kudos to us because we did pull it off. And I think we
We
did a
did.
good job. We were reading a book,
Yes.
studying a book basically every week and a half, so that we could
Right.
record opposite ends, right? So we powered through and did a great job. So kudos to us. But that being said, I also love that we are going to give ourselves a little bit of more grace because,
Yes.
over the summer, because we've been gone all summer, I have read so many non-work books that I fell in love
Me
with.
too.
I found new authors and new narrators that I fell in love with. Oh my gosh. So with the Audible, I can figure out who's narrating it and then just go straight to one of the books that they're narrating and going, that's the next one now. So it's
Oh, nice.
huge role on what I'm listening to and what I'm reading. But I love that over the summer I've fallen in love with reading again. So my first book for this season, I was able to just power through and read it and enjoy it and really absorb it. And I'm so looking forward to being able to do that again this year, but doing it with the passion again and the want and the intention and the space that we're going to have
Yes.
to do this is going to give us a lot of to be more in depth, I think, to be more robust in our conversations. I believe it's gonna be the fallout, I guess is the word.
Yeah. I don't know if fallout is the right word, but the benefit, I don't know. Fallout sounds negative. I don't think it's gonna be bad. I think it's gonna be great. And I agree. And like for me, I've also been approaching my note taking differently. I think because especially the first season, but like the first two seasons, and I don't know how long your books were, but like some of my books were very not short. Okay.
Yeah, me too.
Like some of my books for the first couple seasons were very thick hardback books that I don't know what I was thinking. Oh yeah, I'm going to read that no way. No way.
Me.
But I was more focused on taking notes for like just what I was getting out of the book, which I still am doing. But now, as I'm reading for this season, I'm taking notes also on things I might want to highlight so that I don't have to, like, I can just keep reading regardless of when we're recording next and not being like, because, you read a book and then you read the next book and then you've already forgotten things about the first book.
Yep,
And
yep.
so it's hard to like, keep things straight. And so I'm trying to like keep intentional notes, like so that I bring up the things that when I was reading, I was like, oh, I want to make sure to talk about that on the podcast because that was really good or, you know, whatever it might be. And so I've been more intentional about note taking in that regard, which I hope is going to turn out to be very helpful and help me be a lot more intentional about what I'm talking about here and not feeling like I'm just I don't know, I got so much out of last season's books that I read, which was fantastic for me and for my business, but maybe made me feel a little bit all over the place when I was telling you about it. Like I don't feel like I had the same like focus. And I want to have that focus because I want to make sure, I mean, yes, we keep telling you like, oh, go read this book, go read this book. It's so good. But part of the point is that we want to help you not have to read all the books. And if we can
Yes.
impart some of the wisdom to you so that you can prioritize another book, that would be part of our goal, my goal at least.
I have to agree. So for me, again, with this first book that I read so far for this season, I took a different
Which
take
is
on
what?
my
Give us a teaser.
it is going to be, what was it? All In by Arlene Dickinson. And if you are a Canadian listener, you know who she is. If you are not a Canadian listener, Arlene, I believe in the United States, you have Shark Tank. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Is that a show
Yep.
where people go in and they do
Yeah.
their
Oh,
pitch?
totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So here it's
Yep.
called
Yep.
Dragon's Den. So,
Okay.
and he's a dragon. So that's what she's a dragon and she's fierce and amazing and
Okay.
inspirational. And her book, oh my gosh, I cannot wait to talk about this book. But my note taking is definitely different. I was looking at these books before and studying them almost like textbooks, like I did when I was in school. You read
Yes.
something, you write it down, get your interpretation of it, and blah, blah, blah. But for Arlene's book, what I ended up doing was I just read it and I read it with a highlighter. I'm sorry to all of those who are not like me. I believe a book is to be loved and utilized and read and dog-eared and written in, and, it's to be loved. So I sat there with my handy dandy pen and highlighter and I marked up the book itself. And with that being said, so I can
Yeah.
just highlight what I wanted, underline what I thought was important, put a little note in the margins. So when I was done reading the book, I wrote this little, not a synopsis so much, but as what I thought of the book. And then I haven't done this yet, but the plan is to go back to what I've highlighted and kind of reread that section and then kind of piece together almost like a little essay type what I want to talk about. What was it? Why did that, hit me so hard? Why did I have to highlight that? And be able to talk about it that way in a more organized fashion and with more intention when I'm coming and talking to you about it, because it's more reflective instead of studied, if that makes sense.
Right.
And that's kind of how I'm looking
Totally.
at this season, is more of that reflective point. At least that's the goal. I mean, I've done it with
Yeah.
the one book
So it's
and
more
it's worked really well.
interpretation and less book report, which I'm not saying we were doing book report, but there were definitely moments where I felt like it was a little book reporty and I want it to be
Yeah.
more like, I don't know, just different. My first book.
Oh, hang on. Before you
Oh
go
no,
that,
go ahead. Go ahead.
our entire point to
Yes.
this was to have conversations about books, not to give book reports. And we kind of fell into that as much as
Right.
we were having conversations. But yeah, it did fall into that feeling of, okay, I have to talk about this book now, like you would in high school. I have to do this book report. And that's where that overwhelm came in. That's
Yeah.
that feel of forcedness. And it wasn't as natural and it wasn't as conversational as we intended it to be. So I think with this subtle change on how we're reading, our format of the podcast, and how we're going to be conversing about the books is going to play a huge role on new seasons and make it all that
I think so too. I think so
better.
too.
And
And I think it will definitely help. There's going to be at least one episode this season, and I have a feeling there will be more in the future where we read the same book. And I think that will help a lot because there does have to be a level of book report between us because if you haven't read the book, I have to tell you what it's about. I have to tell you
Yeah.
something. So like there is a bit of that and I think it will be very interesting to see how who knows, maybe next season will all be books that we both read. Well, we'll see.
It'd be interesting and it'll be fun. I mean, when I put down my list of what I'm reading and you came back going, here, are you reading this book? I went, yeah, so am I. I was like, oh my goodness, we both chose the same book for different reasons, which I think is amazing.
Totally different reason.
Reading it together, it's going to have I think it's going to be a great conversation piece. I think that's going to be my favorite episode of the season. Who's to know? Because I've only read one book so far, but I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be great. But I want to know what you're reading. What's your first book this year?
Okay, so my first book this year is I'm going to start by saying it is not a book I ever would have picked up myself, ever. It's called Add More Ing to Your Life, and it's by Gabrielle Bernstein. And let me just tell you, okay, I must have been living under a rock. I don't know, but I did not know who Gabrielle Bernstein is. And so I was completely unprepared for this book. Like that, one of my good friends and someone who's been part of our mastermind for a long time was kind of like she'd read it a long time ago and was clearing it off her shelf. And I was like, you know what? I need books. Give me give me another book. So she sent it to me, and I have already warned her as I was reading it that she may or may not like that episode because spoiler alert, I didn't love the book. So we'll see how that episode goes, but I have a lot to say about it, so it should be entertaining. But no, I it was just it's not something I ever would have picked up, and it has a subtitle of A Hip Guide to Happiness,
Okay. That sounds fun,
which
though.
I mean, yes and no. It also sounds like I am totally not her target audience. But we'll just yeah, we'll talk about that in the next episode. Make sure you don't miss that podcast because it is gonna be a good one.
That's going to be fun.
Um,
Question though, should I Google
yes.
Gabby Bernstein? Because I have no idea who that person is, or should I just wait it out?
I mean, it's up to you. I mean, I don't think knowing who she is necessarily going to spoil anything for you. I mean, anybody who knows who she is already knows what I'm talking about because they're like, "Oh yeah, she's a," and you've listened to me talk, so you probably already gathered that like she's might not be my cup of tea and that I'm definitely not who she's talking to. But it was still very interesting. So I don't know if you want to know in advance or not, but I'll just leave that up to you, I guess. I don't think
I,
it'll ruin anything.
I'm not going to look. I'm going to wait. I love a good, suspense.
Suspense, yes. So yeah, so that'll be our next episode. You definitely want to check that out. And I'm super excited for your first book because like you're super fired up about it and I always love that. I mean, talking about a book that we didn't love is always fun and entertaining, but for me, I much prefer when, one of us is fired up about a book because I just get so much more out of that personally,
Yes,
not
yes.
just entertainment, then it's like I'm learning so much from it. So, which makes me want to like ask you a question because there's a particular book that I read from last season that has had a huge impact on how I've been running my business since I read it. And so I'm curious, is there anything in the first 2 seasons for you that you would like pinpoint and say, this book in particular has completely changed how I'm doing things and for the better?
Absolutely. Actually, two of the books that I read, and I believe they were last season, shifted everything for me. And they opened my eyes and doors and in a sense for me. For sure, the first one would have been The Soul Sourced Entrepreneur by Christine Kong. And yeah, that was last season. And the other one was A Quiet Life in Seven Steps. Now, I am going to be a horrible person and not remember the author, but I know her last name was Kane as well. Susan Kane. That's it, Susan Kane. So A Quiet Life in Seven Steps by Susan Kane. So those two books for me last year shifted a lot. It had me open my eyes to the fact that I've always believed I was a bit of an introvert and that I've always been putting on a face. And my husband even has said I have a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde personality with my business. And I have had that for 20 years. He does not, Ted, he's like, you're two different people. It's eerie to watch you. Like when you go shoot a wedding, you're one person, but if you go as a guest at a wedding, you're a whole other person. He's like, it's just weird. And he
Yeah.
always compares me to,
Because you have to be on. You have to
yeah,
be on when it's your business. I mean, that's just reality.
yeah, but those two books realize that as much as you, for me at least, as much as you need to be on, in essence, you still don't have to be someone else. That I can still be
True.
my quiet, introverted self. And I've really taken the summer to really hone in on that and really embrace who I am as a quiet person. And it could be I'm old. Like I'm not gonna lie. I never thought of myself as an introvert because I used to be the center of attention anytime I went anywhere. And I used to always be the life of the party. And something shifted over the years. And I don't know what it was or how or why,
Well, but here's the thing though. But
but
when you were like that, was it tiring or was it like did it fire you up?
I'm going to be completely vulnerable and honest here. When I was like that, there's a pretty good chance I was probably inebriated. And that there
Well, that's fair.
screams a lot about me learning, to find my own power and to realize that that's not who I was and who I am. I had a lot of fun. I was
Yeah.
not a horrible person and I was not an irresponsible drunk. I just was drunk a lot. And the thing
Yeah.
is with these two books and the shift going from, photographer, which I still do, but and I still have a different personality. Like, my weird fear of grass. I can photograph in the grass, but I cannot stand in the grass. So it's just weird. But the two Jolenes are coming together, and I really, really put a lot of credit on those two books. And it's simply because it
Yeah.
was embracing who you are, embracing your own quiet and being okay with it. Now, for me, the struggle is having my family actually believe that that is who I am. Because I would even put on that for family, especially, my husband's family. They are of a different culture and they're a completely different race. They have a completely different kind of existence. Yet I was always trying to be somebody I wasn't to make sure that I was liked. And over the years, they've come to realize who I am and my core values and all that stuff. But I still, when we have family gatherings, I'm still, the hostess with the mostest. And then I need 2 days to recover because it's exhausting.
See, but that's my point right there. Is that's how you know just because you can put it on
Yeah.
doesn't mean you're not an introvert. And I'm a firm believer of this, and which is why I always say that I am an extroverted introvert. Because in certain situations, when I need to be, or if I'm just really, really comfortable or whatever the situation might be, I can be very extroverted. But then, yeah, I'm exhausted and I need time to recover. And that's how I know that I'm truly an introvert, right? Because it doesn't fuel me to be the center of attention, doesn't fuel
Yes.
me to be outgoing and whatever, it tires me. And that's to me, and I don't know if there's like science behind that, but like everybody that I know that would call themselves an introvert, they say the same thing. So I think there has to be something to that. But I
Believe.
but I don't think it means that you can't like I actually think that it can be very powerful in business because I think
Mhm.
like I'm getting from what you're saying now and what I have heard you say in the past that there's this feeling that or maybe was this feeling, maybe you're moving past that, which I love, that being an introvert is bad for your business.
Yeah.
And I get that because we see a lot of people who and by see a lot of people, I basically mean people on social media because that's mostly what we see nowadays.
Yeah.
That seems so outgoing and so extroverted and have so much energy and all this stuff and it seems like authentic to them. Whereas for us, we can put it on, but it doesn't necessarily feel as authentic because it's not. And, we see that and we think, oh, well, that's why their audience is huge and that's why they're doing so well. And being an introvert, I can't have that. And I've been learning more and more recently how it might actually be the opposite because those extroverted people, nothing against them at all, but they have to be a lot more intentional about creating authentic connection with their audience
It's a lot
because
harder.
it's very easy. Well, yeah, but it's very easy for them to kind of reach the masses as it were, I guess, but like the one-on-one conversation may not come as easily to them.
I
And I
think,
think we're the opposite. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, absolutely. And we live in a world where being an extrovert is rewarded. And like you said, it's
Mhm.
almost like a bad thing to be an introvert. And times are changing, my friend. I think more and more people are coming to the realization that authenticity is actually being who you are, not doing what I did for years and being my, Susan Jekyll and Susan Hyde personalities. It's no. And I think when we live in a world where extroverts are completely rewarded with all of those vanity metrics, the follows, the likes, the audience, the large email list, because
Mhm.
they're always doing video, they're always live streaming, they're go, 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 and always out there trying to get everybody around them. That is who they are. So it comes a little bit easier to get those vanity metrics. And for someone like me, and I've learned with, or even like us, where we don't want to go all out and be out there all the time and be on all the time. We want to make those smaller, more intimate connections with our people, right? So it's going to be
Yeah.
a little bit harder. I personally think it's a little bit harder because you are not throwing the net out and just getting what you can. You're actually going out there with, a hook and a worm and being more intentional to find that one person or that two people whom in which you truly connect with on an intimate level and want to be a part of your circle, even as an entrepreneur and a business person. Yes, I need lots of members in my membership in order for my business to be successful financially and to be sustainable. That's kind of how business works. But the fact that I am able to have more intimate, I keep using that word intimate, but it really does feel like that to me, that it is an intimate connection when you are able to sit down and have a conversation with someone, because it just feels deeper to me
Yeah.
than throwing out that net. And I think that's why it's that much harder, because one, at least for me, I am an empathic introvert, which is a dangerous combination, I'm learning. But my superpower is to really be able to feel what my who I'm talking to is feeling, and to be able to really connect them on that level and absorb and reflect what they are going through. And it's tiring as an introvert to also be that empathetic, to really be able to feel the room and absorb the room. So I like that I'm able to do it more one-on-one, and which is funny because, with all of the knowledge I've studied over, and, I'm not saying I'm, a scholar, but I've done a lot of reading on this over the summer because of those two books. It's really helped me lean into that superpower of being an introvert. But at the same time, I've taken one-on-one sessions out of my business and I don't do them anymore.
Mhm.
And I'm focusing on the more group thing, and the more membership is becoming more of my focus. But as an introvert, for me, it's been a lot easier to connect with someone and go, you know what, my membership is just right for you. I'm here to support you. I'm here to help you. You need to have a chat. You need to go over email and just throw some things out and talk it out, whatever. I'm here, but I'm not scheduling those one-on-ones. I'm not doing those discovery calls. I'm not, and you and I have talked about, I'm not on video, which I will be for next season.
Yes.
Something we're talking about, but it's one of those things
Wait,
where
wait, did you wait, wait, I'm sorry. Say that again for the record.
that's just mean, man. My goal is for next season to be able to do all of our podcasts with video, because
Awesome.
that is something that the business needs, and I need to be
Yeah.
comfortable with it and work on it. But it's not my
Well, and
introvert
it
much
fits
as it is
fits what you're saying too, though.
yeah,
But the thing is, though, that like when it comes to the podcast, like you can be an introvert because you're just talking to me.
so much easier. It really is. But yeah,
Yeah.
but
But then people can connect with you better when they can see your face, you know? They can like feel more like they know you. I'm not pressuring you. I'm just saying.
it'll get
I'm happy to hear like you've admitted that to me in secret, but you just like said it publicly. So I had to get that on the record. I'm just saying.
well, because you want to reach a goal, you got to put it out there, right? Those baby steps and the little
That's
thing.
right. That's right.
Step one
I
of
love it.
jumping off a cliff. There you go.
Well, I think it's awesome. Like, I'm not at all surprised that those are the 2 books that, you feel like had the biggest impact on you. I see it. I've seen it in your content recently, your emails for sure. And like to an extent, but in a different way, like similar for me because like Superfans is I think the book that probably had the biggest impact on how I've been doing things. because for the same reason, right? Like I have an academy, I have a subscription academy that, obviously volume of members, volume of students is what is going to make that financially successful.
Mhm.
But I have done the experiments now more than once running, ads that are so impersonal. I mean, they're videos, they're me talking, but like it's impersonal. It's mass market, right? And I just don't feel like that's how I want to grow, but I don't know that it's going to be effective for me. I don't know. I don't like it. I didn't even let the last one finish out the campaign that I originally intended. I just have decided and realized that and I think this will be and is the same for you as well, that word of mouth is the best
Yeah.
way for an introverted business to grow, right? And we do that by being the most ourselves and connecting genuinely. And the only reason I'm saying genuinely is because I think authentically is a very overused word these days. And so I'm switching it up.
Yeah.
Genuinely connecting with people. And I think that's where Superfans comes in, because that's kind of what he's saying. Honestly, I mean, he's not talking about necessarily like, oh, only focus on a small group of people and don't worry about the larger group of people. I mean, yes, they exist and you need to connect with them as best you can, but it's more focusing on those people who, like you were saying, you spend that time with, and they put in some effort as well, because we can't do it all. A relationship is a two-way street. That you actually get to know that person, they become that super fan, and
Yes.
then they tell all of their friends that would make sense in your business that you are awesome because you're awesome. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so, like, that change in focus for me has been big. And I've been working on some stuff behind the scenes to like implement that in a more effective and detailed way in my business, while still staying on top of all of the things that I do. So that part of it is a slower implementation, but I already just feel so much more aligned with it, and I just like, as soon as I hit the publish button on that second Facebook ad, I was just like, "Oh, I already don't like this." It's just like,
What?
it's not just that it feels like I'm throwing money out the window, which I 100% felt like I was throwing money out the window, but, like, I'm not sure that those people that would find that and join and become a member right then, I'm not sure that they're jumping into what they think they're jumping into, because they did it out of like a 30-second video. Like they
Yeah.
didn't really get to know me any more than I got to know them. And that's not what I'm looking to build. And so I think I super fans is what really helped me get there, in the same way that these two books are helping you get there too.
Yeah, and with that being said, you've said it 3 or 4 times on how it just didn't align with who you are, and that's the kind of focus that I've kind of shifted with the books I read. And Superfans is it's actually I bought it. It's on my you must read list that is not part of the podcast list,
Mm.
one of the many lists of books. But the thing is you are doing what is aligning with you, and you're a sole sourced entrepreneur, in essence, that you're aligning your business with what feels right and your values. And when you do those Facebook ads and it feels icky, it's because something is off.
Yeah.
One thing I learned in adulting is when you meet somebody and there's just something about them that feels off or off kilter, not necessarily icky, but just you have that inkling, that little ugh in your gut telling you something's not right. It doesn't necessarily mean that that person is a bad person. It's just that there's something about their values that don't align with yours. And that's okay,
Yeah.
because what you want to do is surround yourself with those values that you are in line with, because that's the only way you can be able to move forward. That's the only way you can be able to be successful in your business, is if your business doesn't give you the ick. You're not going to go anywhere if it does.
Right.
Right? And that's
Right.
kind of when you see those really successful people out there and you're like, this guy's gross, he's salesy, he's ick. They don't bother him because none of his values or hers align with ours. And that's how they moved forward with
Right.
their success. When you think about how did that used car salesman guy get so successful, it's because he's in line with his values. They might be crappy values, in my opinion, but they're his values. And therefore, he's aligned and he's moving forward. She, he, anybody.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
picking on new
No,
cars.
exactly. And no, 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 no. And I'm not picking on anyone that uses Facebook ads or whatever. Like it just
Right.
isn't for me. It will not work for me. And like honestly to the point that I didn't like leave Facebook, but I kind of sort of left Facebook
Yeah.
when I turned off the last ad. I stopped the campaign and I check it maybe once a day just in case. And let me tell you, I'm not missing anything.
No.
It made me realize, and actually this just came up in my my recent monthly meetup with some of my students in the academy, is that if we aren't constantly pouring into Facebook and putting energy into Facebook, we're getting nothing out of it.
Yeah.
So
And
we're
that's
doing like
attention.
a disproportionate amount of work.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the reality is that when I post my YouTube content, I don't have to put an inordinate amount of energy into that to get something back. In fact, most of the comments that I get on that channel are from videos from months ago. Most of them are not the most recent thing that I posted. And I kind of love that. Whereas on Facebook, I never see that. If I don't go in there and make a point of like trying to get people to engage, then nobody's engaging with anything.
Yeah.
That just tells me that they don't want to be there any more than I do. No offense, Facebook, or maybe offense Facebook. I'm not sure. But like it showed me that that is no longer serving me in my business. And so I'm not going to give it the energy. And then I can give more energy to what does matter to me in my business.
And what does serve you in your business. And the thing too is
Right.
we have read books that have said, well, because this ad campaign didn't work and it felt ick, you were the one that was in the wrong. Your message was not right. And that's why you're not getting any kind of, income out of it. And I
Right.
feel like that is just
And that can be true. Let's just say that can be true.
but in this, it
100% can be true.
100% can be true. And I'm going to say 9 out of 10 times, it probably is true. But it is one of those times when I would think for the most part it is, because when you're people who are running Facebook ads, in my experience, they're doing it to grow, whether it's financially, whether it's members or email marketing, whatever it is, they have that intention. And so what they end up doing is they shift their message when they don't get the return that they wanted, and then they start getting the return. So sometimes, most times it is the message. But when you hit send on a campaign and you immediately go, oh, that doesn't feel good. I don't think it's the message.
Yeah.
It's so many other things
No.
about it and the lack of connection. That is why it didn't work for you. So you were that one in a million, my diamond in the rough.
Aw, thanks.
My
No,
shot.
I think you're so right though, because one of the video ads that I ran got more engagement than half the stuff that I post organically. Like it obviously was connecting with people,
Yeah.
but it just yeah, I felt ick before I hit publish, and I left it up for like a month, I think, and then I was like, yeah, no, I'm not. I can always repost that video organically. I don't need to leave it.
Yeah.
I don't need to keep paying for people to see it. That's the beauty of social media, is that it's free.
And one of the beauties I'm finding on most of the books that we are reading have in the past and have in planned for the future is a lot of them will say that success isn't going to happen overnight, that you do have to have the patience and you do have to go through a lot of the trial and error and pick yourself up and realize Facebook doesn't work for me. Let's move on to the next one. YouTube is working. Great. I'm going to start tweaking and working that to make it work better. That is the point of being in a business, right? There's just no,
Right.
I'm not going to say there's just no way, because, there are so many companies out there that are literally overnight successes where just the magic button worked. Everything, the stars aligned, whatever they did, it just all happened in a whirlwind of a moment. And that happens. And it happens a lot now because the world is so tiny because of the internet, but it is not the norm. And having to go through those trials and errors, having to learn what aligns with your soul and your values as you go along is part of it. And I think that's one of the biggest things about some of the books we're reading is for the most part, a lot of them say that you need to be patient and you need to work hard.
Yeah. A lot of the ones, yes. I can already say that the second book that I'm reading for next season would totally disagree with what you said, but I disagree with it. So yes, I completely agree with you. And to that end, we could probably just keep talking about all these books and all these awesome things forever, but this is already a long episode and it wasn't even
No,
really meant to be. It's just how
no.
much we missed you guys.
Yeah, we were like, what are we
So
gonna talk about? I don't know. And yet we
like, we
talk.
could talk about anything, come on. But I'm going to say, you know what? We're going to end this episode because I want you guys to be able to get on to the meat of this season. Let's get into these books. Do we want to list off our books? Maybe give them a
I,
taste of what is
well,
to
I'm
come.
I'm dying to know what your second book is. Now we know what your first book is and kind of how you feel about it, but you were just saying that your second book is going to not align with what we just said. So I don't think we should tell all of our books, but I really do think that a
Okay.
couple wouldn't hurt.
All right. Well, my second book, which I'm most of the way through, is called $1,000,000 Weekend. And it is, who is it by? I don't remember his name. Noah something. I'm listening to it, so I don't have like a physical book to look at right now. But yeah, Noah something or other. I should know that. Hang on. Let me look it up. $1,000,000 Weekend. Noah Kagan. $1,000,000 Weekend by Noah Kagan. And here's the thing. It there's a lot of good in it, but what he would not, or what I would say he's not um advocating for necessarily, is the concept of it takes time. Now, not that I'm saying he
Yeah.
says everything's going to be an overnight success, but that's just not his focus in this book. So there's a lot of good in that one too. A lot, some I don't agree with, some I do. But that's kind of the beauty of all of this, right? Is like,
Yeah.
even if you read a book that you totally disagree with, you don't like, or like first season when I read Infinite Game and Next Five Moves like back to back, similar
Yep.
topic, very different perspectives. I learned so much about myself as an entrepreneur from reading both of those, for what I agreed with and what I aligned with and what I didn't. And so same kind of thing is happening to me so far this season. So we'll see as I keep reading how it goes throughout the rest of the books. But what is your second book? Let's leave them with 2 books for each of us.
All right. So my second book is actually Carry On Warrior by Glennon Doyle Melton. Now, the name might sound
Oh,
familiar because Glennon Doyle is a very famous author, and I think Untamed was the book that went completely viral. So I think this is pre Untamed. I'm not 100% sure. But what I haven't even started it yet. I have it actually sitting on my nightstand right now. I have the physical book, which I'm excited for. But yeah, I'm looking for. I think you'll find this season for me. You're going to find a lot of that alignment. It's not going to be a lot of, personal self-help stuff, but this one definitely, I don't know if it's self-help, but it's a lot of personal reflection in this book. But for the
okay.
most part, that's what you're going to see, a lot of that alignment with me and less, business focus. Um, then, with that being said, you have one more book before we come to the big one, which,
Yeah.
episode 7 this year we have planned is the book that Kelly and I are going to read together because we both chose it without talking to each other. We were just putting our lists in
Yep.
our fancy little Trello board on what we plan on reading because there's always the plan to read and never get around to read. And when we both clued in that we were going to do this book, I'm so excited to read this book with you. I think on so many levels because one, it's in line with where I am focusing this season on my books. And two, because I get to read it with my bestie. Like, I'm so excited.
Yeah, it'll be so fun. I think it's gonna be so fun. And it's funny because you mentioned a couple minutes ago about how you got Superfans to read and you said not for the podcast. And my brain immediately thought, why not for the podcast? I think that would be
Oh,
very interesting if you did an episode from your perspective of that book. And like, cause like there are a
yeah.
lot of books that we've talked about that the other one is going to read now.
Yeah.
And why
Yeah.
not have another
That's
conversation about it? I kind of
you
like
know
that.
what? I really like that. I mean, the only reason why I have that book is because of the podcast. Like, it's not a book I would have picked up. I
Right.
am a judge a book by its cover girl, and I think that cover had a megaphone
It's a
on it,
very
and I was
plain
just
cover.
yeah,
Yeah.
I like plain, I like
Yeah.
simple, but I'm not a big megaphone person. So I was like, nah, it's
I'm
not.
not sure it had a did it have a
Don't
megaphone?
remember. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure
I
that
don't
was
think it had
the
the megaphone, but I don't think so. But but I remember it not being like the most inspiring cover from what I
yeah.
remember.
Which, yeah. So it's one of those things where, okay, but now I'm going to read it. But you know what? We can definitely talk about that for season 5, which is, I can't believe we're already in the process of discussing season 5. That
I
we
know.
swap books. I mean, we'll have 3 seasons of other person's novels, other person's books to choose from. So that's definitely
Yeah. I like that. But I do think, okay, and seriously, I know we said this episode was over. It's not over yet. Just give us one more second. You teased episode 7 that we're going to read together, but you never told them what it was. Was that on
I don't know
purpose
if
or are
I
you going
want
to
to.
clue them
Yeah.
in?
I think it kind of was on purpose because, yeah,
Okay.
I think it's on purpose. I'm in the
All right.
suspenseful
Well, then you'll
mood.
just have to stick with us this season to find out. The best way that you can support the podcast is to make sure that you are subscribed wherever you're listening and leave us a review. That's the only way that new people will find and join our community. The Success Through Community podcast is hosted by Kelly Gable and Joelene Mills, and all episodes are solely the opinions of the respective host. Our sound production and editing is done by Kelly Gable, and all visual creative, including our logo, was created by Joelene Mills. The Success Through Community podcast is an STC production.